Today we have two people here with us that are going to speak. One is Dave Flanagan from Yalp Interactive, and the other is Liz Sankey from Studio MRC, which is a division of MRC that everyone knows. Yalp, to start off, is a interactive sports and playground equipment company, and Lappset, which Liz will be speaking about, is more of a modern, sustainable playground company. So two interesting sectors of play that are a little bit different from the standard traditional playground equipment that we're kind of accustomed to here in the United States. Since we have a small group, please feel free to jump in with questions whenever you have them. You could also type them in the chat, and I'll bring them up if you'd prefer to do it that way. So without further ado, I'll toss it over to Dave.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming out today, and thanks Matt for inviting me to be here today. So as Matt said, I'm going to be presenting information about Yalp Interactive. So I hope everybody can see my screen, and Matt, you're recording?
I am, yep.
Excellent. So I'm Dave Flanagan, Director of Market Development, and my contact information is here. So if there's any other questions that come up afterwards, we'll be sending out this as a PDF, so you'll have my contact information. So I want to start out by saying that Yelp is a very interesting company. I've been working there since June of last year. And one thing you'll note is that if you look at Yelp, it's actually play spelled backwards, so a very unique take on play. It's based in the Netherlands, but I am the representative for the US, and we'll talk a little bit about the US market, especially some of the we've done over the last 3 years, but we've been in the market for a little over 3 years. Very fun and innovative products that we have, with a very much focus on play for all ages. And one of the unique features of all of our products, and I'll go into more detail about this, is that they're all connected to the internet. And since the end of last year, or since our inception, we've logged over almost 1.3 million hours of play across all of our products in the world. So the company's been around since 1980, but really was only involved in designing the interactive products since the early 2000s. And in 2006 is when we actually installed our first product in the Netherlands. But since 2011, we've been going abroad, and we're in over 30 countries. And right now we have it's close to 900 products across the world. So a little bit about you. We started by Ben Admiral, and he owned 51% of 50% of the shares, and the other 50 was through Lappset. And Lappset now fully owns Yelp, and Lappset has been around for over 50 years. And just like Yelp, Lappset is very much focused on fun, innovative playground equipment, and really looking at what the trends are for the best things to do for play. So in the US, as I mentioned, we've only been here for about 3 years. We have a little over 40 interactives across the United States. But as you can see, we don't have quite a huge map. This is a screenshot from our activity map on our website. And if you go to that site, you'll be able to see in Europe a lot of these icons. In fact, if the icons are going up and down, that means that it's actually being used. But we do not have anything right now in the New England area. We're hoping to change that because, again, we think this is a really interesting new product to install in communities. So oftentimes the question we get is, well, why do you want to integrate technology into the play environment? Aren't we trying to get kids off of screens? Well, what our philosophy is that we think that technology is going to be here for the long term. Kids are born into it, and it's the wave of the future. And so we recognize, yes, that screen time is still going to be a part of kids' lives. But what we want to be able to figure out is there a way to integrate that technology, that fun experience that kids have in the virtual world, and bring that into the physical world? And so with our design sort of look at how to integrate that technological advances into the play environment. But you also want to do it in a way that encourages all the values of play, the social, emotional, the active play that we know to be true. Also want to make sure that it's done in a dynamic way and is also inclusive. Because frankly, we know that kids are unfortunately tethered to the screens more and more these days. So how do we take them outside and have them have an active experience outside? So as I was mentioning, the ability to track data is due to the fact that we can have an online connection for all of our products. So that's something that comes standard with all of our products. We'll talk a little bit about this in a minute, but we have all the abilities to do remote maintenance, as well as being able to identify usage statistics, which is a really unique value that we have for our products. So with our design principles, we have 5 sort of major categories that we look at. First, it's got to be fun. Of course, we want to make sure kids are outside and playing, and in order to do that, it's got to be a fun experience. We also want to make sure it's smart, which basically means just like in the online gaming world, you go and you advance different levels, and we have that built into all of our games. So if you get through level 1, it'll get to level 2, and it get harder and harder, and making a very dynamic experience. We also want to get kids outside, so all of our products are really designed to last and to be outside in harsh environments. So we do a tremendous amount of testing and making sure it's a robust construction so that it will stand the test of time. And then, of course, we want to make sure we're encouraging active and creative. And all of our games that we have on all of our different products really do encourage that kind of play. So again, it's thinking about how do we do the physical world combined with the technological world, the online world, the ability to do these products in non-traditional spaces. Could be in front of a city hall, could be at a library. It doesn't necessarily need to be in a traditional park and rec or school environment. And we also want to make sure that it's inclusive for all abilities as well as all ages. And we also want to bring in some educational components and also a way to encourage more active playtime. So getting families and kids outside playing more and longer and wanting to come back to experience a play environment that's different every time. And then the data tracking that we talked about. And then, of course, it also encourages friendly competition, which is not a bad thing. So I'm going to walk through our products fairly quickly. If you do have questions, feel free to just jump in. You don't necessarily have to chat. You can just let me know, and I'm be more than happy to answer questions. So our first of products is the more active play, active learning components. The first being our Yalp Sona Arch, being our Yelp Memo, and I'll talk about those individually. So the interactive dance and play arch, or the Sona, is a product that it comprises of several different components. The first being a camera and lights, which is at the top. And that is a motion detecting camera. It's not recording anything. It's not identifying anyone. It's purely for motion detection. Then inside the structure is a steel structure, which is a powder coated. And it's behind the polyester cap, which is the outside piece. And that does come in a variety of different colors. And then we have a push button that advances the games or selects the games. And you can, of course, use your elbow instead of pressing with your finger as it relates to not touching things during the pandemic. And then we also have 2 loudspeakers, and both of those loudspeakers are faced inward, so the volume really concentrates in the play area. And then the play area itself is the flooring, and the flooring, of course, is very customizable, which I'll show you some examples. But essentially, the way that it's working is the motion camera is looking at the people that are playing on the turf or on the flooring, and it looks at where they are in relationship to the numbers and the colors. And all of the games work off of that in terms of motion and work position. So games, or all of our products, we have 5 games, and I'm showing six games that we have as part of the starter bundle. And the game that I always like to kind of illustrate is the code breaker. It's the way you go in and the voice will say, break the code, and it'll say 5, 3, 2. And so the child or the adult has in the 3 and the 2 in that sequence. But then once you get past that first level, you're able to advance, and the numbers sequencing gets longer and faster. So you do need to make sure that other people are involved in the play. So just a couple of examples here. This was done at the Campbell School of Innovation in California. And you can see here there's a traditional space, but the Sona Arch is here sort of as a showpiece towards the middle of the play area. So there are things you can do to customize. Some examples are the custom floor, as I mentioned, so you can see some of the different elements here. We also have something you could put at the top, and we don't actually manufacture whatever goes up on top, but we do provide the adapter that allows you to put that figure at the top of the arch. So there is a lot of customization that we've been able to do with the customers. And so some other examples of 3D figures that we've done, and then you can also see the customization that we've done for the flooring. Also, we have a design team that comes up with some crazy ideas. So if you have a customer that you're working, or you as a customer or clients that you have are looking for some unique designs, we have the ability to do that. We also look at the Sona Arch in relationship to and so we actually in the Netherlands been able to provide installations for 10 locations in Netherlands that are focused on the elderly. We also know that elderly who are experiencing dementia are able to interact and play, and music is something that really helps for them to be more alert. So it does definitely simulate multi-generational play. And then another example in outside of Houston, we installed this with a custom floor, and it was part of a new housing development where this has now become really very popular for all ages and all abilities. The other thing too that I just want to mention is that we have the ability to custom audio. So for example, if you wanted to say, welcome to the park, we can get that sample created and then be able to have it on the product. So that's the Sona Arch. The next is our memo, and memo actually stands for memory and movement. And evidence shows, research shows, kids learn better and retain information more when they're actually actively learning and actively playing. So the memo is comprised of 7 different elements, 7 different pillars, I should say. The middle pillar is the sort of the master or the game console where you actually select the game. And then all the peripheral pillars is where you actually play the game. So for example, if you're doing a 1+1 game or addition, the middle pillar will come up with that question, and then you have to run around and find the answer. But again, that's a very simple example of things that we have. Each pillar is a strong steel structure, and then it's encased in a cap that comes in different colors. And then each pillar actually has a 360-degree touchscreen that you can actually, if you're wearing a glove, you could touch it and actually recognize that it's being touched. And then the flooring underneath it is something you can customize. We do sell a standard turf that goes underneath, but there are lots of different designs, and I'll show you a couple of examples. And just like with the Sona, we have many different games. Again, a simple game is addition, so that's something that you could certainly play very easily. But I also like to illustrate the depth and breadth of the memo. You know, it promotes literacy, spelling, social studies, math, and you have the ability to create custom games, which we've done for several of our customers. So again, it just the levels of complexity that we have for the games for the memo. And then again, with customization, you can do different colors on the plastic area. I'm sorry, the plastic structure around the steel, and custom flooring, as I mentioned. We also have a recycled plastic that we have as a cap. And then we also now have a wood product that can be used if you're looking for more of a natural element for the memo. And then, as I mentioned, flooring can be done both. People have painted it, pour in place, so it really does come in a lot of different options to do the flooring. And as I mentioned, the memo wood, this is something that we came out with recently as part of our relationship with Lappset, but it just gives that sort of more of a natural look into the environment. So here's an example of a memo customization that was done in California. You can see the different color on the memo, and then the turf that was put in here is representative of the Native American culture. They actually have a river that kind of goes around the blue color, and then there's a compass rose. So again, very of the culture of that place. And the kids are, Rio do Sol School is very much focused on STEM and STEAM learning. So this fit in perfectly with what they were doing at the school. Another example, this was a pour in place that was done at a children's hospital, Hannah. So they did use this sort of standard color, but they did provide some design for the So the second set of products we have are more focused on sports related activity. So the first is our Sutu ball wall, and is our Toro athletic arena. So I'll talk about each of those separately. So the Sutu is actually comprised of several components. The first being the speakers, which are at the top. Um, then you have the push button, which is where you advance the games and select the games. And then each Sutu has 16 individual polycarbonate panels that are vandal resistant, and it's the same you use in bulletproof glass, so it's very, very durable. And then encasing that whole structure is a steel structure that makes it very durable and very vandal resistant. So with the Sutu, the whole design principle behind this was that, you know, if you are playing the soccer or you're trying to do ball handling with the soccer ball and you're hitting against the wall, you're trying to hit it in a particular area of that wall. Well, this takes that whole concept and brings it to a point where you can actually get interactive feedback. So, for example, if you're hitting it lights up a certain panel, then you have to hit that panel. If you miss it, it'll say try again. Because each of the panels has LED lights in them, as well as pressure sensitivity, so it'll know when the ball actually hits it. And it actually also has a radar sensor in the middle, so it'll actually has a game where you can record how quickly you're hitting the ball. But the whole idea again with the Sutu is that it's incorporating technology and innovation, tactic skill development. And one thing we've seen a lot of recently is renovating courts that aren't really being used all that much. Great way to reactivate those spaces. And of course, it's very fun to watch. In fact, we in the Netherlands, Fox Sports commentators playing against sports players, and it was really fun thing to watch. And we can certainly send out the video after today's session. But again, just like with all of our games, there's intentionality about the different skills that you're developing. And in this case, for ball handling, you can see on the left-hand side, these are the types of skills you develop using the Sutu wall. And the majority of what we've seen being used for the Sutu wall is soccer, but it could be used for tennis. We've also heard about examples of using it with basketball. So it really is versatile. We don't necessarily recommend baseball or any other heavy balls. You could use lacrosse, but you have to be careful about how hard it's being hit. So a couple examples, again, this was in Campbell, same place that we showed Estonia, well, actually in the same city. And you can see here the actual Sutu wall. And then one of the things that we always recommend is having some kind of fencing around it. We do sell fencing, but it's something you can also source locally. And then you can see in front here, they actually did some creative design work with paint in front of the Sutu wall. For customization, we can do different colors in the outside. So that's something we can customize. We also have the ability to have the metal boarding around it. So if you do purchase that from us, we can do branding on it. And then ability to do a skill floor. So that doesn't come standard, but if you have how to do that, we have some templates to be able to do that. So the second athletic or sports-related product we have is called the Toro, and it's the interactive sports arena. And the components include a master goal that is where the games emanate from, and it speaks or kind of communicates with the other three goals. There's a fencing system that is recommended to have because you need to have it encased, and we do fencing or boarding as options. And then it can be done in a perf or pour in place or paint, so that it's really up to the customer. And then we also make sure that there's an all-inclusive entrance. So there's an off fence here to make sure that if someone was in a wheelchair, they would be able to walk to be able to roll into that area. And then with the goals themselves, we have powder-coated protection of the goals themselves on the outside, and the goals themselves are encased in concrete, so very heavy and very durable, and can be able to stand the test of time. And then with the fencing, we do have rounded corners because we want to make sure that the balls don't get stuck in those corners. And then the whole idea behind the Toro is if you change the nature of the game, you can change the way that kids are playing. And this really by having 4 goals, it really encourages kids to be playing. And so what we've seen is that it really does encourage more active and social play. We work with a gold medal field hockey coach to be able to actually come up with this concept. And you can see here, this has a painted floor and then the boarding that goes around the balls. And traditionally, this can be done in a fairly small space, usually about 20 by 20 or 40 by 40 space. So it doesn't take up a huge amount of space. Again, with games, we have lots of different types. The one I like to talk about is the goal switch. This is a great opportunity to get everybody active. And so, for example, taking care of the blue goal, the game will say switch, and so the blue goal is no longer where you are. You have to run and find where it is to defend that goal. So it does definitely encourage a lot of physical activity. A couple of examples here. This was at Rosemary, and you can see here this was a Toro goal that was put in, and you can see the fencing, the boarding, and then the painted floor here, the offsite entrance, and then the 4 goals. And the last 2 products that we have are the Phono, which is our DJ booth, and the Solar, which is an option for home. So with the DJ booth, comprised of several different components. The first being the concrete base. It's over I think it's actually 3,000 pounds. So it really is heavy, and it's not going to go anywhere. And then we have these things called our chill tubes, where kids and tweens and teens are able to hang out, because this product really is geared towards that age range. And then we do have loudspeakers, but again, these loudspeakers broadcasting out the sound is kind of concentrated in the area where the kids are actually playing. And then we also have the DJ mixer, so you'll be able to, and I'll show you what that looks like. But the whole idea is, being able to give kids who are, in that tween to teens age, to be able to actually participate in the play experience. So because the Netherlands has a huge culture around DJs, they were able to take this concept and put it into a play environment to get involved in the play. So essentially, with a DJ booth here, you'll see a lot of different components. There's the ability to do things around crush, scratch, pitch, filter. And I'm not an expert DJ by any means, but these are all the things that DJs do in a professional way. And the beauty of this is that you don't necessarily have to have a smartphone to use it, although that is a lot more fun. But it really relies on tracks that we do have already loaded. And if you want to use your smartphone, you can actually create, mixing with your actual sound play. So it really is very versatile in that regard. And we do also have these benches that come as an option. So it's something that you might want to consider if you wanted to add some different kinds of chill tubes for kids to interact and play. And then the last product we have is our solar option. And so you'll see here it has the solar panel at the top, and then you have a Y shape that's adjustable at the top, and then the steel post that comes down, and then the battery is at the bottom. And this does come in a variety of colors. And of course, with solar, we know the benefits is you don't have to bring main power to the product, and you won't have to have an electrical bill. And we do have the ability to monitor the health of the battery in terms of how much of a charge it still has. And if you're interested in learning more, we can certainly answer those questions about those products. And this is an example of a project we did in France, where we actually have the Sona arch, and then you can see where the solar is to that. And so I know I'm kind of running up against time, so I'm going to kind of go through the rest of this fairly quickly. And like I said, I will be sending this out, or Matt will be sending this out as a PDF, so you'll have access to all this information. So with all of our products, it comes standard with a service pack, a standard pack, which is a 2-year warranty. Comes with those 5 starter bundle games that I mentioned, access to a 3G, so you don't have to connect into a Wi-Fi network. We have a SIM card that we include. And then we provide lifelong support in terms of technical issues, maintenance issues, and any firmware or software updates that need to be made. We do that as part of the standard package. And we also have a carefree option, which extends the warranty to up to 5 years. So, and then it also provides 3,000 Yelp credits, which can be used towards the other games beyond the 5 that you get as a part of the standard package. And then the other thing is if you have a customer or you don't want to have to manage all the games and all the content, we can do that for you as part of the Carefree option. So how do you go about monitoring the health of the product or the game, content? We have several different apps, and I'm going to walk through them. So the first one is My Yelp, which is really the user interface to control things like volume, when it's on, when it's off. And so there is a lot of things you can do on the back end with My Yelp. This is also where we log any issues. So we have a ticket system that we include in the My Yelp, and so you'll be able to see any issues and how we're working towards solving those problems. But then the other thing that cool is the ability to monitor play statistics. So once your product is included or installed, I should say, you'll be able to go in and see how often the playground is being used and for how long. So it really gives you that sense of like, hey, install this. Is it going to be used? And the play statistics on My Yelp are able to answer that question for you. So you can do a lot of things with it where you can filter it by day, by week, by month, even a year. And then you also have the ability to see when is the concentration the greatest, and through a heat map that we have that allows you to determine whether you turn things off and on at certain points of the day or when it opens and when it closes. So there is a lot of ways to use that data to make some decisions. And it also allows you to see how popular a particular game is. So it allows you to see, games that may not be used all that much, and it may be time to rotate that out. So it gives you a lot of intelligence through the My Yelp. So again, just as an example of the Rio de Sol school that I mentioned earlier, you can see the data statistics. At peak was over 4 hours, and we've actually seen products that have been installed fairly recently that were getting upwards of 8 to 9 hours. It's just a really great way to see how things are being used. And so you can see the games here as an example of how many hours in a particular week, how often they were played. We have another app called Yelp Plus, which is a web-based app, and we're actually coming up with a new version of this. But the thing that I want to highlight is the ability to scan a QR code. So every product that we put out does get a QR code sticker, and that sticker is something that you can scan when you're at that location, and it'll geolocate you, and so it'll know what product you're next to. It'll tell you what the product is. It'll tell you what games are on it and a brief description of the game that is being played, so you know a little bit about what the game mechanics are. It's, most of our games, if not all, are very intuitive, but if you wanted to get a little bit more information about the game, the Yelp Plus gives you that opportunity. And then the other feature we have, which I think is really cool, is a augmented reality app. Again, we'll send out the link to you, but this allows you to go into the field and look at a particular location and then be able to take a picture of that site with the augmented reality image to be able to see what it would look like at scale in that particular. And just a small example, I did this kind of, quickly. I didn't go out to Seattle. I kind of played around with the augmented reality and kind of showed what it would look like if it was located somewhere near in Seattle. So something you can use when thinking about projects using the augmented reality. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. These are examples of installations that have been done in the United States. So this is in Asheville with both a Memo and a Sona. This was in Kansas at a health center, and again, the focus was around inclusion. And you can see here the arch sort of is again a feature of the traditional playground. We did a ball wall at a court in Bethany, Oklahoma. So they were able to use the existing chain link fence, and they worked with a soccer club to support that effort. We did one in Omaha, and you can see here with the turf, it's actually, we do sell it in a square configuration. And then, as I mentioned, Rosemary, you can see an overhead shot. And then Reynoldsburg, Ohio, the work with there was able to work with the community to create a design that it had the traditional equipment in the back, and then the Sona Arch almost became like the entrance point to the playground. It really did a nice job of framing that whole play space, and it's very iconic. It really pulls you in, and it's something that's really exciting. And similarly, we did one in Greenwood, Indiana. And this too, you can see the location of the sauna in relation to the traditional equipment. And we did there was a partnership with the NBA All-Star Host Committee, because this is the Indiana was the site for the All-Star game. And then we do custom renderings, and we actually are doing a project this year where we're going to be installing a sauna arch at a park. And this is actually custom for a family whose son died all of a sudden, died suddenly. And so we wanted to, the family wanted to represent their son in the project. Came up with a concept around superheroes, and they're actually going to be working towards getting some of his audio samples to be part of the play environment. So I know I went super fast, and I could have spent a lot on product, but I just wanted to give you an overview. Like I said, if you have questions afterwards, you can certainly reach out to me or to the folks at MRC. But I will conclude, and thank you all for your time, and I'll turn it over to Elizabeth.
Thanks, David. I'm just going to share my screen here really quickly. Okay, great. Okay, can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to start by talking about Lappset and some of the really cool modern architecture that you were just seeing from David. And this slide is to give you a good idea of the different design capabilities that we have with these towers and cubes. So the blue that you see on the panels here is high pressure laminate, and it's available in multiple different colors and can be changed for visibility with these wooden slats that you see on the side as well. And these play towers and cubes are some iconic landmarks for wherever you're going to be placing them. They act as a modern treehouse. I wanted to show you guys some of these installations that have a really cool design element to them. And these are compact as well. As you can tell, they don't take up too much space, but they include lots of different climbing adventures within. This is an example of an installation that has a little bit more visibility with the lights, as you can tell. And this wood is something that I'll get into in the next slide. This is our premium Nordic wood, some of the best wood in the world. I wanted to give you guys a look also at the inside. This bird's nest seat and these different clear bird's eye views are perfect for kids who maybe don't want to have as much activity on the playground and want to chill out in a really cool environment. And the play cubes are a completely new play experience. People who have tried them, which unfortunately I am not one of them, say that you really have to experience them to believe them. It's a completely altering experience. You can't really tell what's up or down, and could be a really, really exciting feature to your new space. Okay. Oh, excuse me. And now the Nordic wood. So our Nordic wood, it's not your typical wood playground. This is not the kind of wood that I was playing on as a kid. It is from PEFC Certified Forests, which is the program for European forestry. And it is the most premier wood that you can get because of its slow growth. The rings are very tight, which makes for very, very strong wood that also prevents against splintering. And it is treated with an eco shimmer to also enhance that prevention from splintering. And as you can see, there's some really cool tower designs with this as well. And the towers can be configured with different kinds of nuts and ropes in between to create an even larger play experience. And this organic appeal is something that actually was super fast selling where it comes from in Finland. It is something that brings the forest back into play and can be something that creates a natural and organic feel in a city playground, or as you can see here, enhance the magical feeling of the forest where it already exists. Not to go into Lappset's more custom and themed projects, these premium designs are incredible projects that can expand from simple napkin sketches. Our designers and the designers at Lappset will work with you to create literally anything that you can imagine. Like this design here is inspired by olives on a cocktail napkin and is full of different climbing, sliding, all different kinds of adventures. And it serves as a modern art piece. Similar to this whale here, from afar, you can imagine this is just an artistic landmark, but inside it's full of play value. All right, and that's all I had for you guys today. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to shout. I know David's still here to answer some questions as well.
Dave, one thing that comes up often at trade shows when we're talking about Yalp and the interactives is having electronic play outdoors. Do you mind just touching, 1 minute on the durability of the equipment?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, we go through a very robust training, or sorry, not training, but test to ensure that all of our products can withstand harsh environments, and that not only is the structural components of the Yelp products, but also the electronics. Um, One of the things we also do is we make sure that there's not going to be any issues with the electronics. In fact, with the memo head, for example, we subject it to a whole bunch of water over time to make sure that there's no leaks, it doesn't get into the electronics, and certainly has passed the related to that. Some of the harshest environments you can imagine in the Netherlands, in Denmark, in Sweden, which get some harsh winters, and they are able to withstand those kinds of environments. In fact, kids are in Finland and the Netherlands, they're playing on the Sona Arch even in the wintertime. So it does prove without a doubt that the electronics can perform in those colder climates. One thing I will mention though, and I don't think it's going to be so much of an issue in the Northeast, but we do make sure that if you are in a climate that does get a lot of heat, dry heat, particularly like in desert climates, that a shade is put over the units, because we want to make sure that the electronics don't get overheated. But again, as I mentioned with the ticket system, oftentimes what will happen is if it gets overheated or there is an issue with the electronics, it'll actually trigger a warning to us automatically, and we'll be monitoring that. So if there is an issue that we can look at, we will be able to manage that very easily. And then of course the customer will actually be able to monitor performance on my Yelp to make sure if there are any issues that they're aware of it, and then here at Yelp we'll investigate it and make sure that it's resolved as quickly as possible. And one thing on the electronics I just want to mention too is I know sometimes the concern is about running power to the products and is that safe? Well, the way that works is you're running traditional 110 up to 220 volts into the product, and then it actually transforms down to low voltage DC current. So it's very safe, and it's not going to be an issue in terms of safety.